the IRS is ever going to recognize sort of an innocent spouse rule, which is really what you'd hope for somebody who is in the position you described, is a difficult decision. You also have to be conscious of the fact that, you know, judges are required to report fraud, IRS fraud as well. So in instances where that's a prevalent issue, negotiated settlements are generally a preferred way to go than to go through court, which doesn't really necessarily address the tax return component as much as it addresses how you negotiate between the spouses, who's responsible, who will indemnify the other, and things that you can accommodate and not even accommodate, but contract for in the agreement. So it doesn't mean that the IRS can't come looking to your client necessarily, but as between the parties themselves, you can have an agreement that the parties sort of at fault, or presumably at fault or responsible, will agree to indemnify the other spouse. And you can sort of make financial concessions and agreements in that agreement in order to account for that. And also sort of assign responsibility as between the two of them in that agreement.
So I'm about to throw a pretty tricky question at you, but let's do a hypothetical. Say there's a situation where there is a business, right? Some of it's on the books, some of it's off the books. Now there's a divorce. Now, do both parties kind of know about it? Maybe the wife or the husband doesn't know exactly how much money is in the business. But obviously, they're going to want a share of the entire business, including the things that are off the books. What are the things that you can try to do to negotiate on one side to protect your client, because probably some tax issues there, but on the other side to make sure that they're actually getting a fair share in terms of their split in the marriage?
Yeah. People often in situations like that live a lifestyle that is not commensurate with their tax returns. So, it's sort of obvious that the available income they've had is more than what they've reported. And both people are complicit in that, in most instances, both people are aware of it. Sometimes, one party is really unaware of the finances entirely, or, don't ask, don't tell, don't want to know, sort of scenario where they're just been benefiting by it, but they haven't been wanting to know the details of it, which isn't uncommon either. I think, how much how long the marriage has gone on, how long the lifestyle has been, what it's been, and how far afield it is from what's been being reported are all factors that would come into play in negotiating from there. But I think, the more that people can come to an agreement by really being honest with themselves about what the facts are, the less protracted and the less sort of potential there is for more sort of criminal external IRS court involvement. But I think that, by and large, when people get into discovery documents and sort of the litigation components of trying to determine what spending has been, it generally leads down a path that's more and more exposing of each party and their various contributions to the deceptions.
Right.
So I think that as a lawyer, I often say to people, there's sort of both rigorous and zealous advocacy, and there's also wise counsel. And I think you have to give wise counsel to your clients at that point and say, this is a conversation that you really need to have with yourself and then with your spouse about, what the reality is of how you've been living.
So Heidi, I'm very excited that you're on now because I wanted to talk about this new book that you wrote. Can you tell us the name of the new book and what it's about?
Sure. Yeah, I can give you a little show and tell too, because I happen to have it here. Right just there. Handy. Yeah, Wonderful. We do. It's called Dissolution to Evolution. Wonderful. And it's available on our website, which is theconciliumpath.com or on Amazon. But it's really about turning the divorce process on its head. My sort of having asked this pretty audacious question is, why is English contract law the construct for divorce when we know so much more now about human development and child development and psychology than we did back, when we inherited all these laws from England. So I think that what I've tried to do is help people build both a constructive growth path for themselves as well as the inevitable divorce path if that's what they're going to do. But in terms of the divorce, help them think through the process because there are choices: mediation, litigation, collaborative law, arbitration. These are all sort of possible ways to get to the courthouse door. But a lot of times clients are unaware that they have choices, and they talk to, one lawyer. It's sort of like you talk to a surgeon, he's going to tell you to cut. And, there are other ways to accomplish sort of your ends. But I think that it helps people to think that through and then ask themselves some questions about what their real goals and priorities are and how they envision restructuring their family. And what does that mean for them personally? So where do they want to end up 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now is an important question to ask at the outset, not to ask 2 years into the divorce.
Yeah. And that's so important. And your book couldn't come out at a better time, giving people this knowledge and empowering them during a time when the courts are absolutely at a standstill. If there's other options in terms of relieving their pain, they have to understand that. And I know we talked about this many times. We were saying that you need to take a holistic approach. That after this whole thing, it's not over. It might be over on piece of paper.
Yeah.
But in terms of you getting back to where you need to be and moving on is a different story.
Absolutely. I mean, just like there are many kinds of marriages, there are many kinds of divorces. And people think of divorce as being a legal thing, and it is, but it's a social thing. It's a family thing. It's an economic thing. It's a friendship thing. It's a lot of things. And I think, I prefer using the language of restructuring a family rather than divorcing because I actually wrote a blog post about this, I believe on my website last week, about just even the word divorce versus the word restructuring. They have very, very different sort of the genesis of those words is very different, and they imply something very different. Divorce being to divert from something, and restructuring being to sort of reframe and regain where you want to go. So that's what we really try to help clients do. And to your point about courts being so backed up now, Jason, I mean, it is just heartbreaking. And a lot of the mediating I'm doing now is coming from litigation counsel who's just saying, we can't give clients what they want through the courts. Maybe mediation can accomplish that.
Yeah, so Heidi, I also want to touch upon the institute that you have created. And not only sharing your knowledge through the written word in your books, but this new institute. What's going on with the institute? How can people get involved in terms of learning from it? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to, and thanks for asking. It's exciting. I've just launched it with my co-author, who's a Colorado judge, actually. Will be stepping off the bench soon, which is when we'll be really launching this in the fall. And it will start out to certify and train lawyers in this process so that lawyers who, traditionally in law school, I mean, you get that piece of information, the legal part, but you don't get the psychological and the financial background that really helps you help clients sort of more holistically put together what they need as a whole package. And I think it's a burnout factor for lawyers, too. I think it's exhausting. To see things only from a perspective of dissolution, and growth is a much more satisfying outcome. And when you really help clients get there, I think as a professional, certainly as the individual going through the experience, it feels better. And also you feel like you're doing something that's more constructive in this world. And I think that is healthier for everybody. So that's our goal. And we're excited to start it.
Tremendous. I mean, I know we both mentor a lot of young attorneys and law students, and just the practical training is really a missing piece. I know we talked about before how other countries, essentially you have internships.
Apprenticeships,
Apprenticeships for years before, while during law school, and afterwards that's required as part of the profession. And it's pretty much, you pass the bar and it's like, good luck. where
Exactly.
they've never been in divorce court, they've never been involved in a divorce case, they only read about cases probably from statutes in other states, not even appropriate for our state, and it's just like, okay, you're expected to know the technique and the training.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. So
It is crazy. And I think, you take that and you multiply it over many years. I think people just develop sort of their own sort of a shell and a construct that's based on whatever cases they've had and whatever positive or negative experiences they've had in that. But it doesn't really have sort of a frame of reference that's more developmental and holistic in thinking. And I think that's a disservice that we as a community both give to clients and to one another. So we hope to really, shift that paradigm and revolutionize the experience for everybody.
So into our last part and the most difficult part of the conversation. Springtime is coming. What is the activity you're most looking forward to when the weather is nice?
Oh, man. Well, I've been blessed with a lot of walking trails around where I am. And so other than ticks, which are out now, which is a little bit of a downside to spring here, being outdoors, biking, being out on the water, being out in nature is like hugely, to me, it's been a real salvation during this period of time. And I think for a lot of people, I see so many people out walking. And we got a new puppy, COVID puppy, named the notorious RBG. And she's a small and mighty color RB. And she's delightful and sort of gets me out every day walking. And, so looking forward to a lot of that. And I don't know, just sort of embracing, I hope, more celebrations. I have a daughter graduating from college.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And just hoping that everybody sort of can see our way clear through this really, really challenging period of time and be